Chapter 5. The Past is an Alien Planet, the first and last episodes of Life on Mars. K-Punk post January 10, 2006. Life on Mars is symptomatic enough to be interesting. Symptomatic of what? Well, of a culture that has lost confidence not just that the future will be good, but that any sort of future is possible. And also Life on Mars suggests that one of the chief resources of recent British culture, the past, is reaching the point of exhaustion. The scenario is that Sam Tyler, John Sim, a detective from 2006, is hit by a car and finds himself back in 1973. The game that you can't help playing as you watch is, how convincing is the simulation of 1973? You're constantly on the lookout for period anachronisms. The answer is that it isn't very convincing. But not because of anachronisms. The problem is that this is a 73 that doesn't feel lived in. The actual post-psychedelic, quasi-Eastern Bloc seediness of the 70s is unretrievable. Kitsch wallpaper and bell-bottoms are transformed instantly into style quotations the moment the camera falls upon them. There must be some technical reason, maybe it's the film stock they use that accounts for why British TV is no longer capable of rendering any sense of a lived-in world. No matter what is filmed, everything always looks as if it has been thickly, slickly painted in gloss, like it's all a corporate video. That remains my problem with the new DR Who. As it happens, the contemporary British scenes look like a theme park, a very stagey stage set, too well lit. Look out, there's a thief about public information films on black and white TV, open university lecturers with preposterous mustaches and voluminous collars, the test card, everything is so iconic, and the thing with icons, after all, is that they evoke nothing. The icon is the very opposite of the Madeleine, Chris Marker's name, rhyming Hitchcock and Proust, for those totemic triggers that suddenly abduct you into the past. The point being that the Madeleine can only manage this time-snatching function because it has avoided museumification and memorialization, stayed out of the photographs, been forgotten in a corner. Hearing T-Rex now doesn't remind you of 73, it reminds you of nostalgia programs about 1973. And isn't part of our problem that every cultural object from 1963 on has been so thoroughly, forensically, mulled over that nothing can any longer transport us back? A problem of digital memory. Baudrillard observes somewhere that computers don't really remember because they lack the ability to forget. K-Punk post, April 13, 2007. In the end, the science fiction elements of Life on Mars consisted solely in an ontological hesitation: is this real or not? As such, Life on Mars fell squarely into Todorov's definition of the fantastic as that which hesitates between the uncanny, that which can ultimately be explained naturalistically, and the marvelous, that which can only be accounted for in supernatural terms. The predicament that Life on Mars explored was, is Sam Tyler in a coma, and the whole 1970s world in which he has lost some kind of unconscious confabulation? Or has he, by some means not yet understood, been transported back into the real 1973? The show maintained the equivocation until the end. The final episode was ambivalent to the point of being cryptic. Sim has wryly observed that the show's central conceit lets the production off the hook. If Tyler was in a coma, then any of Life on Mars's historical inaccuracies could be explained away as gaps in the characters' recollections of the period. No doubt the enjoyment of Life on Mars derived from its imperfect recollection, not of 1973 itself, but of the television of the 1970s. The program was mitigated nostalgia. I love 1973 as a cop show. I say cop show, because it is clear that the SF elements of Life on Mars were little more than pretexts. The show was a meta-cop show rather than meta-SF. The time travel conceit permitted the showing of representations which would otherwise be unacceptable, and beneath the framing ontological question, is this real or not? There was a question about desire and politics: do we want this to be real? As the avatar of the present, Sam Tyler became the bad conscience of the 70s cop show, whose discontent with the past permitted us to enjoy it again. Sim, as the modern, enlightened good cop, was less the antitype of antediluvian bad cop Gene Hunt than the postmodern disavowal which made possible our enjoyment of Hunt's invective and violence. Hunt, played by Philip Glenister, became the show's real star, beloved of the tabloids who adored quoting his streams of abuse, carefully constructed by the writers so that they could come across as comic rather than inflammatory. Hunt's no-nonsense policing was presented with enough grit to make us wince, but never so much violence that it would invoke disgust. In this respect, the program was the cultural equivalent of a blow to a suspect that would not show up under later medical examination. Undoubtedly, although perhaps unintentionally, the show's ultimate message was reactionary. In the end, rather than Tyler educating Hunt, it was he would come to an accommodation with Hunt's methods. When, in the final episode, Tyler is faced with a choice between betraying Hunt or staying loyal, at this point in the narrative, it appears that Tyler's betrayal of Hunt is the requisite price Tyler must pay in order to return to 2007. This also became a choice between 1973 and the present day that amounted to a decision, not about collar lengths or other cultural preferences, but about policing styles. Audience sympathy is managed such that, however much we disapprove of Hunt, we are never supposed to lose faith in him, so that Tyler's betrayal seemed far worse than any of Hunt's many misdemeanors. Tyler's apparent return to 2007 underscores this by presenting the modern environment as sterile, drearily worthy, ultimately far less real than the rough justice of Hunt's era. Modern wisdom, how can you maintain the law by breaking the law? Is set against Hunt's renegade heroic identification of himself with the law. I am the law, so how can I break it? The deep libidinal appeal of Hunt derives from his impossible duality as upholder of the law and he who enjoys unlimited jouissance. The two faces of the father, the stern lawgiver and pure jouissance, resolved, the perfect figure of reactionary longing, a charismatic embodiment of everything allegedly forbidden to us by political correctness.